If I can just introduce our next speaker, John Jackson from Camden Borough Council. John's particular focus, well, digital strategy. He's CIO of Camden Borough Council, so digital strategy, connecting IT innovation to business. IT innovation is all very well, but it's no good really if it doesn't do anything much for you. Take note, the BBC. Nurturing innovation and efficiency across the supply chain, channel shift, obviously a key focus of today. We're going to be talking about channel shift in quite a lot of detail. Mobile working, social computing and workforce transformation, next generation business intelligence, security management, compliance, service integration. Who say the CIO's job is easy? And obviously the next thing is the big thing on the horizon is next generation cloud services. So with no further ado, John Jackson of Camden. You got the clicker?
I'm hoping it's here. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is John Jackson, as Jeff said. I thought I'd just share the pain of the public sector at the moment. You know, times are hard, yeah? And I was working late one evening. It was about 8 o'clock. And I bumped into a guy from the finance department. I said to him, "You look very happy." He said, "Yeah, John, I'm celebrating my early retirement. We had a great party." And he said to me, "So when are you retiring?" I looked at him, I said, "I'm 45. And he said, "Christ, John, IT's a bloody hard job, innit?" Anyway, I'm delighted to be here to talk about digital strategy. Very passionate about this. Just a bit about Camden. We're an organisation with £1 billion turnover, £350 million operating costs, 5,000 employees. 220,000 residents, I mustn't forget about, over 24,000 businesses, 600 lines of business. Over 6 years, between 2012 and 2018, we've got to deliver £120 million plus out of our bottom line. That's not cumulative, that's out of bottom line. That cannot be done without radical change and innovation. New business models, new ways of delivering services, new ways of interacting with citizens. So for us, digital isn't just about channel shift, it isn't just about open government, it isn't about open data, but it's about an integrated, cross-cutting approach to make digital a part of what Camden does every day, okay? So much deeper, much wider than classically you might see in what might be badged a digital strategy. I'm going to talk about some of the priorities that I'm working on at the moment, with the management team, with the staff, with citizens and residents. And the first thing for the council is, of course, we've got to provide that local strategic leadership. We've got to put our resources at the right place at the right time. And what's been fascinating for us has been the developments around things like in-memory analytics and predictive analytics. If I just talk a little bit briefly about predictive analytics, I've been fascinated by the Medway Trust case study. How many of you actually know about that? They've done some work around NEETs, not in employment, education and full-time training, and they've put together a series of risk factors that enabled them to identify children, young people who are at risk of falling into that category 280 days earlier. So what? What it meant was they were able to intervene earlier and have a higher success rate and a better outcome for that person. I think that's a fantastic achievement. One of the things that we're doing at the moment is using an in-memory analytic tool to generate dashboards for all our major themes and areas in the council. And what's been absolutely fascinating, I'm slightly worried about putting it on camera, but when you start exploring data, it's very different from analysing data, if you like. So we put our dashboards together, for example, on parking. And when we put the parking dashboard on, it was quite interesting because we found, for example, we're giving fines to cars in Afghanistan. Now, I know our parking attendants are very keen, but that seemed a bit too keen. But it brought home a big point about what these analytics tools bring, which is the opportunity to explore data and bring new insights, okay? I've also been fascinated by looking at what's going on outside. We've got something called Customer 360, where we're not only looking to join up information within the council about citizens and businesses, but we also want to join that up with information and context from outside the council. Okay, and I've been fascinated reading stories about firms nowadays that are actually saying, okay, in a just-in-time system, we used to deliver 6 bottles of Coke to the shop because we got an alert that told us they'd run out. But actually I'm reading stories now that say, actually the weather's warm, so we'll deliver 12 because we know more people will drink that Coke. And it just shows you the enormous power of using context and real-time data together to provide new insights and different ways of doing things. I've also been fascinated by the stuff that Redbridge have piloted and pioneered, the stuff around social media. They did some work around budget decision making, okay? And instead of just having a sort of classic sort of committee and a discussion, etc., they actually involve residents in the social media way and engage them to say, well, what do you think we should cut? Okay, real democratic change in there. Another thing that's a big thing for us and fascinates me is the digital public realm. Absolutely fascinating. The Internet of Things. What can we do in public sector to fundamentally change the business model around this? How many of you have heard of big belly bins? I think they're fantastic. The idea that you've got a bin with a solar panel on it and sensors in it connected to the internet, fantastic. You know, what does it do differently? Well, you know, classically we just send somebody out to collect the bins every 2 weeks or every week, depending on where you live. And it might be half full, it might be completely full. You just don't know, but you're just doing it anyway. With big belly bins, it says, I'm half full, don't come and collect me. With the solar panel on the compactor, it pushes it down, so it actually stores more stuff. You don't have to collect it as regularly. It actually has alerts on it to say, look, I'm running out of space, come and get me. You know, that transforms the model because you don't have to send wagons out to collect things. You know, you're not spending money, you know, with your suppliers on that sort of stuff. I mean, again, smart meters. We've been doing that in Camden for a few years now, and what's been really interesting with smart meters is not only does it tell you about consumption patterns, but what it also does is something very powerful. If you send someone a bill and just say this is what it looks like, and you know, here's the best tariff, do people change? How many people think they would change behaviour if you just got a bill like that? Would you change behaviour if you were told you were spending 25% more than your neighbour? And that's a really interesting insight, isn't it? When you combine behaviour science with data. So I think that's a really fascinating one. Digital economy for us, absolutely imperative. You know, there's no point in doing all this digital stuff unless we get people online. We're working very hard to do that. You may have read that Camden led a consortium of London boroughs to put free Wi-Fi provision into Camden on a concession basis. 11 boroughs have signed up to that. We're going to generate over £3 million over the next 10 years minimum, and we're going to use some of that obviously to help us bridge the digital divide. But one of the things that's fascinated me about these location services, and you know, again, colleagues in public sector may be thinking about this, but you know, in Camden what we want is people to stay in the borough. And why do we want people to stay in the borough? Because they'll spend more money if they're in the borough. It adds millions to the local economy if we can keep them there an hour longer. So wouldn't it be great if you walked out the local British Museum and it popped up and said, by the way, there's a great Italian restaurant down the corner. Yeah? It would, honestly. There's some good restaurants in Camden. But you see the power here of connecting, you know, this data with devices and location. There's just a whole wealth of things that we're looking and thinking about doing in Camden. Challenge Shift, the classic stuff. We've got our Camden accounts, we've got our business accounts, we've done some crowdsourcing, and we're doing a lot of work on Right First Time, which is effectively arranging our services to be online. And again, the thinking is there. It's not just about, in a sense, automating what we've got, but if any of you have seen and you're very welcome to have a look at my Life Ray TV episode, if you get 5 minutes, but I talk there about how we're just changing the way services are put together and rethinking it. The big thing here for us is the systems thinking, which I'll come on to in a second. Very important to us is bringing services together, what digital does and what it does for citizens. It allows us to work seamlessly across multiple services. There's huge change in the public sector right now with health, the police, local government, all joining up to deliver seamless services. Why is that good news? Well, I said earlier, I talked about the NEETs example. You know, the earlier we work together, the less time we're spending on doing the same assessments together, but also we're actually building that picture and early warning signs that can help us get in and deliver better outcomes for troubled families and vulnerable families, etc. Last thing on this big agenda for us is the workforce. Of course, you know, the workforce is very important in digital strategy, because what we want is our frontline staff to be spending as much time in the front line as possible. So big picture says we've got to get to digital and get off paper. We have 20 odd kilometres in Camden at the start of last year. Now we're down to around 13 kilometres in the business. Our target is to get down to less than 2 kilometres by next year. That means you don't have to be located by the filing cabinet to answer a call. Okay? What we're also looking at is how we make our workforce fully mobile. Our default strategy going forward with the staff will have mobile devices. We're not going workstations. What we want is people out there being alerted and being on the go and being connected all of the time. The last thing for us is around what we've called Google Council. This was quite funny because I was at an IBM presentation. Probably shouldn't be saying this online, but they were very keen that we changed it from Google Camden to something else. I don't know why. But the basic idea is that Google have made the world very simple. You can search for anything through one very simple line. Wouldn't it be fantastic in a council, with all its information, you had the same facility? You could search and find anything. Imagine what a productivity boost that would be for the front line. Imagine how much more effective staff could be through that stuff. Jeff, keep me to task if I'm falling behind here. Just a few things I want to say. There's some important things that run alongside these strategies, and I want to make sure that it's embedded and stays. The first thing is we want to build the digital capacity of the organisation. This isn't just about skills, it's about digital savvy. It's partly about a culture of innovation and risk-taking. I'll come on to why that's so significant later. The second thing is building new digital centres of excellence in local government. We've built, for example, in IT, centres of excellence focused on channel shift, business analytics, integrated working and agile working. We haven't organised IT in a classic way. We've organised it to deliver those outcomes for the business. That's a very radical and different way of doing IT. And last on this is really embedding digital into policy. There are big changes that happen, regeneration, new buildings, etc. We want to make sure that when these things are considered, digital is part of it. So when we put a new block up, can we put Wi-Fi in? Can we get fibre in? It's been amazing talking to BT and Virgin and other commercial providers. We just don't tell them this. They would love to know that, and then they can get high-speed provision into those new developments very early. And of course, I wouldn't miss this one out, data. It's a huge challenge for the public sector, a huge challenge for Camden. All of us would, if we're honest, there's a lot of duplication in there, a lot of inconsistency. The technology now is in there to bring it together and improve it. We need to improve the stewardship of our data, but importantly, we need to start thinking about how we can add context to data so it adds additional value to it. So not only do you store the data, you store something metadata about that data to do something different. Very exciting stuff. For me, a couple of things I wanted to put on the radar. All of this, of course, great ambition, great ideas how to embed it. We've got to change a few things, right? The supply chain for local government and applications have been pretty difficult and challenging for us. We have set up, running out of Camden, nationally, IT category management. There is a national approach now to the supply chain. Okay, what does that mean? Local authorities working in concert to get a better deal and to influence the direction of travel. So when we're having conversations now with our big vendors, it isn't just Camden, it isn't just London, it's national. And what does that mean? It means if we want suppliers to do things like share APIs, develop software, give us software development toolkits, we've got power and leverage to do it now. Okay? That will change. This will disrupt the software market, I guarantee it, over the next 5-10 years. Open standards, vital for us. We also want to incubate and reward disruptive entrants. And as I say, we want to change the mindset of the developers and the software houses a bit here. The classic model is to sell your licenses and then sell your expensive services. And if you want to do something, you've got to ring the account manager. Does anybody ring Apple's account director when they want to do something? Yeah? We've got to change the mindset here in the supply chain. Key catalysts, I won't go through them all, but a couple of things that I'm benefiting from. The chief exec has given me a license to innovate and take risk. Okay? I think that's a very brave thing to do, particularly in my hands. But we're doing it. And it is, I think, been very empowering for me and for the teams to do that. I think the other interesting thing is we always talk about classic program and project management, these disciplines that, and these big long charts and risk registers, of course, everybody reads at the boards. But actually, what we're benefiting from is a bit of a loosening up of that. And we are, getting into now in a serious way agile development. But what's also, I think, driving us, and really interesting, was, I say, matching up behaviour science with data. I think there's a real opportunity here between, the academics and the business and government to really get into this in a big way. How can we contextualise and use things and do it just a lot different to where we do it today? Some of the pinch points for me, there's so much going on, it's like mad. And trying to manage all those independencies is very difficult. I think one of the challenges I get is that people seem to occasionally think that innovation experimentation in the public sector is wasteful. And one could understand why in the current climate, but I think we've got to be brave and do this, because I think the prize from new service models and new ways of doing it is worth it. It does mean, of course, my hair might not just go grey, it may start falling out. We need to do more on comms. I think, classically middle managers are very effective blockers. You'd be amazed that actually, making us a mobile organisation, my biggest problem has been how many monitors I put on the desk to sit alongside the laptops and whether or not I give them risers. There's some strange things happen. And I suppose for me, I think we talk a lot about open systems, but let's be quite frank. The ecosystem for open systems at the moment needs to be a lot stronger. We need to build it, we need to make it stronger. And again, one of the things that I'm very passionate about in private is building that, nurturing that consortium, getting the open source community to be more engaged in a real way into government. Our stack for delivering these services is completely open. We use Liferay as our portal, we use JBoss ESB for our integration platform. So we're really committed to that, but it is risky. So, Jeff, am I okay for time?
Yeah, you've probably come to the end now.
Yeah. Thank goodness. I heard the sigh in the room. But for me, as I say, Digital Government 2030 is much more than a channel shift strategy. It's much more than a strategy on open data. It has to be embedded in the areas that I said. It has to be made part of everyday council business. It is a journey. I'm not going to pretend for one moment that Camden's at the vanguard of everything, but I think the ambition's there, the collective will's there, and we're on that journey. So, with that, I'll hand over for questions.
Thanks. I have to apologise because I came late, so this statement and question may have already been asked. It's great to hear about the innovation that's kind of happening, but I guess my question is for all the speakers, there's such a significant amount of people, individual users who are offline, and the reality is that I don't think we've spoken about how we still cater for those individuals so that there's a dual obligation, I feel, and how do you bring them along on the journey, or how do you ensure that those who don't want to be on that journey don't miss out on the services that you're allowing digital citizens to engage with?
No, it's a very good question, and I did say something earlier on about that. I think, Camden itself has put an awful lot of time and effort in. We've got one of the widest public offerings. We've got hundreds of systems in libraries and in UK online centres. We've got an adult learning offer, which is very extensive. We're currently at the moment looking at, I mentioned it in the presentation earlier, whether or not we can provide social broadband into our housing estates at low cost. We're exploring that actively right now. And also a key part of our wireless concession contract that we let, and that's, as I said, generating over 3 million over 10 years. We're going to reinvest that to help us bridge the digital divide. So we're going to put that back into, schemes that are going to help people get online, get the confidence and skills that we can. I think what's also very important as well in all of this, of course, and I shouldn't forget it, is doing the research and getting the evidence base right. So I've spent a lot of time and effort trying to get behind the numbers and understand the coverage of broadband in Camden for our residents, and also to look at what the underlying causes of that are. Because again, I don't want to, I suppose that we could talk about this in the break perhaps, but there's a lot of different strategies for different types of situation. The other thing I'll just point out to colleagues, it's worth having a long look, if you haven't, at whether or not superfast broadband is meeting your business demand. Because one of the key things for the capital is we've got to make sure that there's enough high-speed broadband available to our businesses at low cost for them to thrive. And I have to say, one of the things that I've uncovered in Camden, the south of the borough, is that we have a potential problem coming at us writ large, because commercially it doesn't make sense to do a lot of building and digging because of the nature of the, if you like, the footprint there, but we have to address that. So we not only have a potential digital divide for citizens, we've got to watch ourselves that we don't have a digital divide for business.
Hello, David Stoker, Surrey County Council. I'm glad the superfast word came up, because Surrey has an ambition to be the first entirely connected superfast broadband county by 2015. My question, I was glad to also to hear you talk about predictive analytics and risk of need. We're doing quite a lot of work into Ronnie risk of need indicators. My question is, with the political pressures in the economic climate, how do you make the case for preventative work, saving problems in the future when we're too busy firefighting?
Gosh, that's a big question, isn't it? Yeah, and not a straightforward one. What I would say, the first thing what we've done is we did a lot of work, for example, on troubled and vulnerable families, and we got the agencies together to look at the data. And when you all sit there, in a sense, in a secure environment and looking at the quality of those interventions and what the outcomes are, that's a pretty big statement to be saying, because when you actually look at the data, it tells you, actually, we're not, we could do an awful lot better here. And I think it's the agencies working together and sharing, I think that's making the case to show this can actually make a difference. I think the great stuff around NEETs is good, and I think the other examples that I found, we've got we've invested very heavily in MDM technology, master data management, and that's giving us a single view of our residents. But what that's driving out is all sorts of interesting challenges around single person discounts, subletting, doing things multiple times. So again, it's that sort of stuff I think helps us make the case to invest and keep going at this. So I'm very passionate about it. I mean, I was involved many years ago. I was seconded to the children's unit in the aftermath of Victoria Climbié, and one of the things I was charged with was providing some technology advice around how we could tackle that. And part of that, out of that, not just me, but a team of us, was Contact Point. It's a shame, in a sense, we didn't quite get there and put it online, but that whole point about being able to work together and spot things early, I think, is a big thing for us.
We've just one final question. If you could make it a half-sentence question and a two-sentence answer.
Very quick. John, thanks. I'm David Allen, a Surrey councillor. The whole reason we're here is as an extrapolation of what I call the laws of unintended consequences. And I was talking to Elizabeth about that earlier. All of social media is really, people like yourselves are just reacting to what's actually occurring. Nobody came up with a grand design of, let's have 20,000 gazillion tweets every 2 seconds. How are you managing, and what's your strategy to deal with the next step in the laws of unintended consequences?
You know what, I've got a straight answer for that. And I'm only allowed 2 sentences, and I think I've used them. Maybe we can take that one offline, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you show your appreciation?